Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today I am super excited because I get to show off the upcoming AYANEO Pocket S. AYANEO was kind enough to send over an early prototype, and there are a few things that I can't show off in this video that will be coming up later on. They're still working on a few things here and there, but we can definitely get a good feel of how this thing performs and the overall design with this video. I've got a lot to test and a lot to show off, but first things first, I gotta say, this is the best looking handheld on the market, hands down. This thing is super sleek, impossibly slim, and it's got a 1440p display that looks absolutely beautiful. If you're not familiar with the upcoming AYANEO Pocket S, basically what we've got here is an Android handheld. This is actually AYANEO's second Android handheld to hit the market, but this is powered by a more powerful CPU. We've actually got the Snapdragon G3X Gen 2. This chip was specifically designed by Qualcomm to go inside of these gaming handhelds, and this is the first one to the market. Now, I want to show you how thin this thing is because I was kind of blown away by it when I pulled it out of the packaging. I thought it would be much thicker. Now, we've seen renders, we've seen images of it online, but it's really hard to tell unless you hold it in your hand. I mean, this thing is super thin when you compare it to other handhelds on the market, and it feels absolutely amazing. And of course, it is powered by an ARM SoC, but it's one of the more powerful ones on the market. This will do up to 15 watts, and for an ARM chip, especially a Qualcomm Snapdragon chip, that's quite a lot of wattage, so we can definitely expect some awesome performance out of the Pocket S. Before we get into testing, as you saw, it is super thin, coming in at 14 millimeters right there in the middle. CNC forged all the way around, it feels very, very premium. Again, like I mentioned, this SoC can do up to 15 watts, and they've designed a new cooling system around this Qualcomm chip known as the Dragon Tamer. It is an actively cooled system, so we do have a fan, and this could run at 15 watts all day with that fan going. It really doesn't get that loud, but they are kind of adjusting the curves right now. Again, prototype that I'm working with here, and it's kind of hard for me to show off a few things in this video, but when it comes to the display, this is their new 6-inch 1440p bezel-less IPS, and of course it's not AMOLED, but AYANEO has always done a really great job with their newer handhelds choosing an awesome IPS display, and this is no different. 490 pixels per inch, up to 400 nits of brightness, and 120% sRGB. It also has Hall-based analog sticks, Hall-based triggers around back, and of course we've got that Snapdragon G3X Gen 2, 8-core ARM SoC, and the biggest cryo core here will do up to 3.36 GHz, and for the Adreno A32 GPU, 1 GHz on the maximum clock there. And finally, you will be able to pick this up in a few different storage and RAM variants. You can go up to 16 gigabytes of RAM and 1 terabyte of internal storage, but all of them will support a micro SD card. If you're familiar with Android, then you'll be right at home with the main user interface, but we also have ISpace, so we can actually launch our ROMs and our native Android games from there. We can go through, add box art and everything like that. We've also got an AYANEO button. We press this once, it'll bring up our performance menu. From here, we can tweak and tune everything. Got a few different presets that we can use, plus there's a button on the side which will allow us to quick switch between performance presets. We can also remap our buttons, adjust the analog sticks. We've got fan control, RGB control. We also have a built-in on-screen key mapper, so it'll support games like Genshin Impact. We can totally map touch points to the physical controls here. From AYANEO settings, you could log into your AYANEO account if you want to, but the main thing that I've been using from here is just their updates. They've been pushing quite a few over to me, and performance has definitely improved in the last few days. It's actually pretty awesome what they can do here. They're non-intrusive rolling updates that I've been getting so far, so it really pertains to all of the performance profiles and all of the AYANEO settings. So far, I've been having a really good time with the Pocket S, but again, it's a prototype, still working with early software here, so some of this stuff may change, it may be in different locations. And I want to give you a closer look at this software, so I'm going to plug it into my game capture in just a sec. But before I do that, I'm going to go to my RGB control just to show you what we're working with here. Right now, I've got it set to like Google Breathe. If you're familiar with these AYANEO devices, you know, we've got a few settings that we can mess with. But you can set this up to breathe in a solid color, you can switch between the RGB modes, and you can totally disable it. So if you're not into the RGB around those analog sticks, you can always turn it off. But now I want to move in a bit closer so you can get a better feel for the software. Then we're going to move over to some native Android gaming, and of course, we're going to be testing out some emulation also. I figured plugging this into my game capture would make it a bit easier. And by the way, yeah, this does support video out of USB Type-C. So from our main menu here, We've got Aya Space. I've also set up some different applications here. You can totally customize this. When it comes to Aya Space for Android, basically what we can do here is set up our different emulators and games. So you can set this up using the Pegasus folder format or Emulation Station folder format. And this way we'd have all of our box art and everything like that. I don't have it set up right now. I've been using standalone emulators. As you can see from here, I've installed a bunch of stuff that we will be testing out. The overall layout and settings may change down the road. Again, this is a prototype. But basically, if we press our Aya button on the device itself, it's going to bring up our performance. So from over here, we can change our mode. So we can go to gaming mode, balance mode, or battery save mode. We can also disable the fan completely. We've also got a mute setting, which just lowers that fan speed quite a bit, as you can see. Because up at the very top, we do have our fan speed listed. So mute, we'll go to balance. You can see that'll jump right up. And we've got max. With the Pocket S set up in game mode, fan at max, you can run this thing all day without it thermal throttling. But I'll tell you what, I mean, most of the time I've been in balanced mode here, especially for native Android games. Balanced on the fan, never had an issue with it. We've also got a performance overlay, which comes in really handy. So this can be on screen anywhere, basically. Real-time FPS, CPU usage and temperature, GPU usage and temperature, RAM usage, fan speed, battery, and our power draw from the battery. Moving down, we've got our controller. And controller link is basically our vibration here. And this thing does have some really nice haptics. I usually just have it on cozy. Actually feels pretty good with games that do support vibration. We can change the analog trigger sensitivity. We can also change the sensitivity of the joysticks, and we can customize the layout of our face buttons. Out of the box, it's kind of set up like an Xbox, but if you wanted to go with, let's say, the Japanese or a Switch style, you could do it that way. This does have a built-in gyro, and from here we can change the sensitivity, low, middle, or high. And we can remap our face buttons and triggers from here. Now again, more stuff will probably be added down the road, but for now, this is what we're working with. From handheld, brightness, volume, go to airplane mode, all the basics, and like I showed you, we do have the RGB control here for those rings around the analog sticks. Sound tap magic, screenshot, disable Bluetooth, again, airplane mode, go into battery saver, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to add more here later on. And finally, we've got our settings. Basically, rolling updates. So a lot of the updates that I've gotten so far have definitely increased performance across the board. You can sign in with your AYANEO account, change the system language, you can personalize, so you can go with the background, clear logos, or box. Network, Bluetooth, change the server from the international to the China server. Again, update, battery, and app notifications. So right now, even with it being such an early prototype, there's quite a bit that I've been able to kind of tweak and tune with this unit, especially given that we have the performance settings over here, and this overlay, like I mentioned, does come in really handy while playing your favorite games or playing your favorite emulators. Now it's time to show off some native Android gaming on the Pocket S. Here's Devil May Cry, Peak of Combat, totally maxed out. This actually has quite a few settings that we can change. We're at 60 FPS, highest resolution that we can do. I mean, all of the graphic settings are on right now. The built-in controller for the Pocket S is detected by Android as an Xbox controller, so any game that natively supports a controller, it's going to work with it right out of the box, not an issue whatsoever. Like Minecraft, Devil May Cry, even Call of Duty Mobile will work with the built-in controls, no mapper required, but of course there are games out there you may need to introduce a mapper with, but a lot of the games on Google Play already support a controller. Here's Real Racing 3, again, totally maxed out from the graphic settings, and this looks really good. It actually feels amazing. I did originally have it set up. I was using the built-in gyro, but I just swapped over to the controls here to make it a little easier on the camera. But yeah, all of the native Android games I've tested so far have worked perfectly maxed out, including Genshin Impact. Now, this is one of those games they still haven't given us native controller support on Android. And before I show you how to map this, I wanted to show you the graphic settings that I'm using. Maxed out, so we're at the highest, and we've also set it to 60 FPS. So as soon as we do that, it says it's a custom. But this is as high as we can go on Android, and it's going to run at 60 FPS. Now, as you can see, I've got the built-in controller working here, and it's all thanks to the built-in key mapper system that AYANEO has added here. From our AYANEO settings, we're going to go to Controller, and we can set up our on-screen key mapper directly from here. So as soon as we tap this, we're going to get a little icon on screen, well, a pretty large icon, and basically we can drag and drop whatever buttons we need onto whatever touch points we want. This is how I have it set up right now for Genshin Impact. Got the opacity turned down. We'll go ahead and save this. And yeah, we're good to go when it comes to using a controller with this game on Android. Just moved over to some enemies real quick, get some action going. But yeah, I mean, this thing performs really, really well with this game. Basically, any Android game on the market right now, you're going to be able to play on this device without an issue. And right now, I am in game performance mode, but I've got the fan set to balanced. You could go to max if you want to, but I haven't hit thermal throttle with this thing at all. So obviously, the Pocket S has native Android gaming covered, but what about emulation? So the first thing I wanted to show off here was some Gamecube emulation using the Dolphin emulator. We're going to do some Gamecube and Wii here. F-Zero GX, 1080p on the hardest track to emulate for these ARM devices, Fire Field. We're running at 60 FPS. I'm using the OpenGL backend. If you've ever tried to run this on your Android phone with anything less than a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, you know how hard it can be on it, especially upscaled. Now we're moving over to a little bit of Wii, still using that Dolphin emulator, but instead of 3x native Gamecube resolution, which is 1080p, we're at 4x with this, which actually brings the resolution up to 2560 by 2112. And a lot of the games can actually run like this at 4x, but there was one that a lot of people want to see, it just doesn't run well upscaled on most chips out there, and that's Rogue Squadron 2. This one I had to take back down to 3x, so we are at 1080p, but we're seeing some great performance out of this game on the Pocket S. And since we're using a Qualcomm Snapdragon chip, a lot of these games are going to run much better using the OpenGL backend, but you may need to kind of tweak and tune. Some may run better with Vulkan, but kind of a rule of thumb when it comes to the Dolphin emulator nowadays is OpenGL is where it's at with the Snapdragon chip. We also had to test out some PS2 emulation, and right now I am using the Nether SX2 mod for Ether SX2. Basically, it removes the ads that were placed in there after the fact, and some controller optimizations. Ratchet & Clank, up your arsenal, 3.5x resolution, OpenGL. I also tested out an easier to run game, which was Crash Bandicoot. We could go up to 6x resolution, which is really overkill, even for this 1440p display, but I wanted to see if it would do it, and yeah, it definitely handles it, but that's an easier one to run. I also threw in Gran Turismo 3 at 3.5x resolution, OpenGL backend. So far, this thing has been handling PS2 like a boss. I mean, I've been able to power through everything at those higher resolutions. Easier to run games can upscale much higher than we're seeing here, but for the most part, there's really no point here because we've got a 1440p display. Gran Turismo 3 at 3.5x resolution is already running at 2240 by 50 driver. We could definitely make these games run at full speed on the Pocket S. So far, really loving the AYANEO Pocket S, and again, there were some things that I couldn't show off here. This is a prototype, but in my next video, we will be testing a little more. I want to go with some PSP, maybe even some lower-end emulation, just to show you how good it looks on this display, but yeah, I mean, for the lower-end stuff, it's going to run just fine. We've got plenty of power here. So I will have a couple more videos coming up soon, and if there's anything else you want to see running on the Pocket S, let me know in the comments below, but I'd love to know your thoughts on this device. Just seeing what we've seen so far when it comes to performance and the overall design, is this something you'd be interested in at the right price point? Are you going to skip it? Are you not into these Android handhelds? Let us know down below, and if you want to learn a little more, I'll also leave a link to AYANEO's website. They do have a product page up right now for the Pocket S. It'd be really cool if you could hit that like button or think about subscribing so you know when I post the next video. But that's going to wrap it up for this one, and like always, thanks for watching.